Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and again, part of our outreach of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group that we have. We broadcast not only to that group, we also broadcast to the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, not the theatercriticism.com website, but the page that we do for support on Facebook. And we'll talk about Facebook in just a little bit, as well as my own YouTube channel. So we have three different places where we broadcast, and those of you who know me will also see this broadcast shared out on my own wall later on today. Those of you who are going to share any comments or ask any questions, we suggest you go to streamyard.com/Facebook and feel free to post those questions or comments. If you don't do that, we won't know it's you. We'll be able to see Facebook users or YouTube users, but we won't be able to see who you are. If we know who you are, we'd like to say hello. So there you go. All right, we've taken a little bit of a hiatus, and I think it's all been worth the wait. I'm looking forward to our guest tonight, but I wanted to let everybody know, first off, right as the storm was hitting, or perhaps right after the passage of the storm, we were planning on having a talk with John Bigonnet the day after what turned out to be the landfall for Hurricane Ida. We have rescheduled that talk with John Bigonnet for next week, next Monday at the same time. So those of you who are looking forward to seeing John Bigonnet, the playwright from New Orleans, who has recently retired from the Loyola faculty and is now a playwright on his own, please feel free to join us next Monday at the same time, and we will have him on. We have a lot of things that are going on too, a lot of other people who are going to be taking part in the NOLA Theater Talk shows for the future. But let me not delay this show any longer. Please let me welcome to you a lady who I got to know online, as well as a fellow member of the American Theatre Critics Association. Those of you who know about TDF, she is the editor-in-chief of, if I'm not mistaken, TDF Stages, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right, Raven. Let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Raven Snook. Let me bring Raven in and make sure that she can get seen and that we are actually able to bring her into the stream. There you are, Raven.
Hello.
Yes. Now, Raven.
When you said we met online, that sounded much more.
Yeah, I know. but I mean, I became aware of you, I should say, online.
We met at a Broadway show. The first time I remember talking to you was at School of Rock. I was with my daughter.
You were.
I was quite young then.
Yes, and you reminded me that but of course I didn't know of your work, and that's what I mean to say is that as a critic, you had said, "Oh yeah, I'm here in New York, and I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if you joined the American Theatre Critics Association?" I was doing
that's true.
You were the one who suggested
it. Yeah.
and you said, "Well, I'll think about it." And you were very nice and diplomatic about it. I will say that. But I was so delighted when I saw that you had joined. And I think you contribute a lot to the organization, not only as...
Not so much during the pandemic, to be honest. I was very focused on other things.
But the nice thing about it is, as you know, is that they did reduce the rates for people who were critics who were, on either a hiatus or perhaps were experiencing a downturn in their economy, which everybody was. Yeah. So they understood that we were feeling pain, and they didn't excise from us payment of the flesh, as it were. But anyway, I did want to say that I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you at School of Rock, and your daughter, who, by the way, I'm not going to mention her name or whatever, but because I'm always protective of youth. But I want to say she's a very talented young lady, and I wish that one of these days she would work doing some illustrations for me, because she's a very, very talented artist. And
we'll see.
We'll see.
She's trying to get back into the swing of full-time school after a year and a half of basically having no education. So.
And I can't imagine what it's like to be raising a kid, going to work, or trying to do everything you were doing previously in person, and then trying to do it virtually. It had to have been a nightmare. And so, congratulations.
I will say, though, that, the time... It gave me a little perspective on the fact that maybe I don't want to see 5 or 6 shows a week. And part of that's age, and part of it's that I only have a few more years with her. So I think my theater going may be reduced somewhat. I mean, as of now, I see 2 shows a week, and I'm pretty much seeing, you know, not everything, but most everything I want to. So,
And what we're going to talk about is some of the shows that have opened already, or perhaps will open on Broadway. We may not get to cover everything, but we're just going to do sort of as broad a brush as we can sweep. But before we get any further, I would like to get you know, some opinion about the recent Tony Awards. And I know that we would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that it was the Tony Awards that deserve the big asterisk beside
yes.
them, just like the baseball players who get accused of using steroids, they have the asterisks by their name. It's the same thing. This is the Tony Awards that only really had a few shows out of a potential larger
especially
number.
musicals.
Yes.
Because, you know, the fall tends to have more plays, and then the musicals come in the spring. And even some of the ones that had officially opened were not eligible because they made they backtracked the cutoff date. So yeah, there were really only 4 musicals that could have possibly been in contention. And of course, The Lightning Thief, poor Lightning Thief, got 0 nominations, and all the rest of the musical nominations were split among Moulin Rouge, Tina, and Jagged Little Pill. So
yeah. And again, I have to say, those were all good shows. I didn't get to see any of them except Moulin Rouge. I did get to see that one, and I actually ended up eating a ticket, which hurt me to the quick, but there's nothing I can do. I ended up buying 2 tickets, knowing for sure that everybody would want to go with me.
Yeah, and no one wanted to?
Well, you know, I even was holding up a ticket at the last minute. You know, my hat sat in the seat next to me. It was terrible, but you know, what am I going to do? I actually had saved a seat for a fellow critic who you may know, but when he contacted me and said, yes, he's getting in, he'll be getting in about 7:30 that night. I said, the show starts at 7:30. Yeah. You're never going to make it. So, you know, unfortunately he missed out, but it was, I mean, again, we'll talk about that later, because I really have a number of the shows to go over. But the Tony Awards, I think everybody predicted, and I even told you when we were talking about doing the show, I said, yeah, and it's like a giveaway, isn't it, that Adrienne Warren's going to win for Tina? I mean, it was like the lock of the year, wasn't it? Don't you think?
That, yeah. I mean, there were a few. Well, no, I mean, the biggest lock was Aaron Veidt.
Oh well, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, no competition.
I don't even want to comment about that. I mean, you get nominated in a cast, you know, nominations. Aaron Tveit, and who was the other people running against him as far as the nominations? No one. Yeah. And the only way you can lose is if nobody votes. That was
he could have lost if less than 60% of the people who cast ballots didn't choose him. But the idea that would happen seemed pretty far-fetched, and I just can't imagine it would have happened.
He's a nice guy, you know. Why would you do that? You know, I mean,
yeah, right, I mean, and also he's done really good work. I mean, not just in that show, but in Catch Me If You Can. And I still remember him in Grease Live on TV. I thought, he's not a Danny Zuko, and he completely blew me away. I mean, he's much more versatile, I think, than people realize. So yeah, it would have been ridiculous not to vote for him. But but next to him, Adrienne Warren was certainly the lot.
And not to put anything down for Elizabeth Stanley. Yeah, you know, who was also I know got very good reviews.
She was great.
But I mean, but Adrienne Warren was Tina. I mean, she was the entire musical, and she carried the weight of it. And I think, you know, the young lady who won for Best Featured Actress, who also
Lauren Patton.
Lauren Patton. She was also wonderfully cast in the role. Unfortunately, I know there was some. She even acknowledged it. There were some difficulties with her piece. Right.
I mean, there are a lot of, you know, it's something that's still evolving, and you know, it's hard to have even a set opinion, but about what is happening. But it's very clear that non-binary folk and trans folk have been very upset by the way that character was in Boston implied as non-binary or trans, and then suddenly they backtracked it, got to New York, and okay, that, you know, all of that kind of was excised from the script. The producers have acknowledged it. You know, Lauren Patton's acknowledged it, and it's clearly, no matter what your opinion is about the character, it's impossible not to acknowledge how hurtful this has been for the community. So I'm hoping, you know, my hope is that there can make real change and move forward. I mean, it's very telling that Lauren Patton's understudy was a non-binary person from the get-go. It sort of tells you that their head was in 2 places. I think they thought it could be more flexible. That said, I loved Lauren Patton. I thought she was great. And I admit, as a cisgender straight woman, I did not see the problem until I started to read. But once you start to read and you see the pain, it's hard not to acknowledge it.
So, I guess I have to ask, a question. A few years ago, Peppermint was, I think, the first trans person to play
To
a
have a
role.
major role on Broadway.
I mean, and that was in Head Over Heels. And I thought Peppermint did an incredible job. And then I know that I'm trying to remember. Went to This Island, right? We had another role.
Well, Alex Newell is sort of gender nonconforming. It's different, and their pronouns. He often uses he, him, which I've always found difficult. But I want to respect whatever pronoun somebody uses. So
right. So, but
yes.
again, I saw the show, and if I didn't read the playbill, I certainly would have thought it was not necessarily a man or gender man, playing the role, and he had an incredible voice, maybe because
I don't know if you watch Zoe's Infinite Playlist, but I mean, they were the best on that show. They were they were that show for me. So we loved that show.
I didn't get to see the whole thing. I started it, but I just couldn't keep up with it. But that's okay.
Well, it's been canceled, so all you have to do is binge the second season, and then
Smash got canceled too, which I loved as well. And one of the great things about TV is you get to see so many of the Broadway stars on TV. I mean, you see Raul Esparza as a prosecutor on Law and Order, and you see as a detective, you get to see the fellow who was in Rent.
Jonathan Groff.
Well, Jonathan Groff, of course, but in Rent. Green, Detective Green. I'm trying.
Jesse L. Martin.
Jesse L. Martin. He was wonderful. But a lot of these people. I mean, I remember also seeing Rebecca Luker and Danny Burstein on stage
Law and Order.
as parents on Law and Order too. Going, well, that's Danny Burstein and Rebecca Luker. What are they doing? So every now and then they throw them in.
Go back for 1 second just to the Lauren Patton thing and why I think it's different than Alex Newell or Peppermint is that it's different to have a character who's not written as any particular gender and then cast somebody who is fluid or trans in the role. It's different to take a role that people in the community felt was very clearly written as a non-binary character and then backtrack, change the script, and cast a cisgender woman in it. It's not that simple. Lauren Patton had been with it from the beginning since the workshops. But I think as it kind of went on and it evolved and they were writing it, I think they thought, I mean, it is an issue-laden show. It's a show that likes to touch on sort of everything. And unfortunately, that means it gives short shrift to some things. And I think in this case, that's an example of, we're also going to deal with gender identity when really they couldn't also put that on top of everything. I think that's where the difference is. And I think it's been a learning experience. The fact is there need to be more characters that are written as non-binary or trans characters. And that the more you have characters written as people who identify that way, the more there are going to be opportunities for people in that community to play those parts. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I guess the question I have is, are non-conforming,
gender non-conforming. There are lots of different words.
Yeah, cisgender people. Are they able to write effectively and create a character who is non-conforming or trans?
The hope would be that, I mean, especially if you're writing a play, you're writing, or, a musical, you're writing so many different characters.
Right.
If you get people in there that can help you, that have an expertise in the area, you have to compensate them. You can't just say, hey, tell me about your life. But I would like to, and also more people who are non-binary and gender non-conforming should also have opportunities to write their own stories.
Right.
I mean, I would like to think that we can all agree at this point that non-cisgender characters should not be played by cisgender actors. I think that is a pretty straightforward thing. In terms of the writing, I mean, Diablo Cody, who wrote Jagged Little Pill, is a cisgender woman, but she was writing a father, a son. I mean, she's writing lots of characters that aren't her experience. But the hope would be that if you were writing something that really was so far out of your experience, that you would be able to, consult with people, again, compensate them so that they can help you develop it in a way that feels authentic. That's what I think.
Well, again, that we're sort of at a crossroads. I think, this pandemic has shut things down, but it's given us an opportunity to examine a lot of different aspects of theater. And I know the big elephant in the room, if you will, is obviously post George Floyd. A lot of people have more or less made an indictment of the way things were, and that goes across the board, not just for the systemic racism aspect, but also, there've been cries that I think are left over from the Me Too generation movement that came out, that resulted in people like Scott Rudin exiting Broadway, and Harvey Weinstein. I mean, I looked at the at a
I wouldn't say they exited. I would say they were thrown the hell out.
yeah,
And it was about time.
right. But I looked at a playbill. They talked about God of Carnage, and I looked and I see Scott Rudin, I see Harvey Weinstein, all listed as major producers, and there will be other people coming along to produce on Broadway who are not necessarily, Scott Rudin or not necessarily Harvey Weinstein, but will be able to do a very fine job of producing, and they will have money just as well that can be spent, I'm sure.
Well, it's not just money. I mean, one of the things that bothered me when the whole Scott Rudin thing happened was that I saw lots of people saying, like, yeah, he's a jerk and it's awful, but I'm sad because he's such a visionary, as
Yeah,
if only he could be a visionary. And I
right.
remember saying, like, well, he sort of had a lock on so much, he didn't get an opportunity for anyone else to be a visionary. Don't act like he's the only one. Certainly somebody like Darrow Roth, I would say, is a visionary, and she has lots of money to play with. But I think a really interesting and something interesting that's happened now is, like you said, it's leaving room for other people. Matt Ross, who was a publicist, is
Yes.
now doing a lot of producing. He did some before the pandemic. He was one of the producers on What the Constitution Means to Me. But right now, this fall, he's bringing 3 of the most exciting plays that I saw off Broadway right before the shutdown, or one of them's a little older than that. He's bringing them to Broadway, and I think he's one of the lead producers. So I think that now that Scott doesn't have a lock on everything, we're
Yeah.
going to see more people. And every day with some of these productions that are coming, there's 7 plays by Black playwrights this fall on Broadway. And every day we're seeing new people's names added to the producer list, people like John Legend, people like Cheryl Lee Ralph. I really think that there are people out there who maybe made their names in other parts of the business who want to really produce exciting visionary work. And, I hope people go. I mean, the real question is, are people going to go to these shows? And I don't mean in terms of the quality. I
You mean
mean,
in terms of,
just
yeah.
are people, I have trouble getting dates. People who used to always go with me to theater say it's a risk I'm not willing to take. And I think that is really going to be
Yeah.
the biggest challenge.
And in New Orleans, we had a survey that was done for the classical arts, if you will, the opera and the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra, which always did very good, but they never had what I would say sellouts. They had reasonably filled auditoriums, but not filled to capacity. And it was indicated in the surveys and the responses that at least 10% of the audience has been lost forever. They will never
Wow,
go.
forever.
Forever. They
I
will
mean,
never
people
walk
say
beside.
that, but are they really? I mean,
No,
they're
well,
lost for now.
10% is still a significant number.
Yeah.
If that can make or break an opera's performance. 10%.
But I
So
also think that people who say that are really what they're really saying. I mean, they're ticking off
yes, yeah,
a box that says that. What they're saying is, until the pandemic is truly over, I'm gone.
yeah,
Chances are, if we get to a point where this really is a manageable virus, where it's
yeah.
like the flu, when 60,000 people die of the flu every year, it's terrible, but we don't sit around going, I won't go out because I could get the flu.
Right.
We are not there.
Right. We have
We
to
are
live our
nowhere
lives.
near there. But if one day we are there, I think these people will come back. I mean,
I think we're
assuming
getting
there's still,
closer than we were. Now I
yes,
think the numbers are definitely going down. The trend is definitely going down. The infection rate down. The vaccination rate going up slightly, but there's still going to be a big
it's not ever going away. I mean,
no,
especially with international tourism. I mean, my cousin lives in Pakistan and was saying, the US thinks it's going to vaccinate its way out of this, or not
no,
just the US. The developed world thinks they're going to do that, and they're not, because there are all these other countries that don't even have access. And as long as people travel all over the world, it's going to circulate. But I do agree with you. I mean, I think I mean, look, there was an article in the Times today about the weird cycles that the virus has been doing that they don't quite understand why yet. But at the end of the day, they're like, we think the worst is behind us. Let's hope it's correct.
Yeah.
You know what? I would like to think it
from their mouths to our ears and to everybody else. I hope that everybody respects that. So again, one of the reasons I asked you again, the Tony Awards, we'll put that in our rear view now. We pretty much acknowledge the fact that one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm just going to close out with the Tony Awards of appreciation for a lot of the actors who are on stage on the West End in London. A lot of them seem to be able to come to the United States, with the exception of Andy Carl, and win the Tony Awards. Andy won.
He was nominated.
He was nominated, but he didn't win. I thought for sure he would win.
But Adrienne Warren didn't win. She didn't win the Olivier. Sharon D.
Yeah, that's true. But
sorry, why am I not coming? Clark. Sharon D. Clark won.
Well, Sharon D. Clark, of course, is now going to be coming up. We'll talk about that later in Carolina Change. But she won the Olivier in Carolina Change.
She did.
But I thought Adrienne Warren, had been on stage in London, because I know my sister.
She did, but she lost the Olivier to Sharon D. Clark.
Okay. Gotcha.
So if they'd been head to head in 2020, like they were supposed to have been, it would have been an interesting contest.
Yeah, it would have been. Anyway, I did want to get to some of the shows that have opened. I should say reopened, because obviously. One thing I
want to say about the Tonys. Sorry, I keep interrupting. All I was going to say is, I did like that in the first part that they gave all the awards in a way where you could hear who was nominated and they weren't relegated to the commercial breaks. But why did they lump all the designers together? I thought, my God, if you're going to do this and really, have two separate parts, one that's a commercial for Broadway and another one that's honoring the work, honor the work. That was annoying. The commercial for Broadway was just, I enjoyed a lot of it. My sadness was that there was not even one mention of the plays. You wouldn't even know there were plays on Broadway. And I understand that plays are hard to market on a show like that, but it was sad. It was really sad.
We got to face it. Lighting, set design, costuming, not as sexy. It's just not.
No, but when you have it on behind a paywall, you assume the people who tuned in were people who were real theater fans. They would have sat through that. I understand not having it on TV.
I think people tuned in because they had Paramount Plus and they knew they could see it, and they wanted to see what it was all about.
Not a lot of people tuned in. So
no, there weren't. There weren't a lot, and I don't know how many people tuned in for the celebration. Broadway's Back. And I know, there was some pushback on that as well. But I think in a different kind of environment, in a different kind of year, where we have really, competitive awards, they're not going to put stuff on Paramount Plus like that. I don't think.
No, hopefully not.
So anyway, I didn't get to tell you what I did. I always thought your name was such an interesting name that it reminded me of one of the Bond girls, like Vesper, etc. Raven Snook. So I have an this is my concept of a 007 martini, which is a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred, with a bit of vermouth in it. I believe in the old days, so that's what I have now. What did you bring in the room?
I am a teetotaler. I haven't had a drink in about 22 years.
Well, I'm not going to make you start tonight.
This is my Diet Pepsi in my very, very nice Jack Skellington.
I was going to say that's a little bit of Jack Skellington. So
it's October. I mean, every month is Halloween to me, but it's extra Halloween this month.
We're going to get into some more. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, my guest tonight is Raven Snook. Raven, you are the editor-in-chief of TDF Stages. Now, please let everybody know what the TDF organization does, how they work, before we get into some of the plays, because I think a lot of people may be most recognizing TKTS, the ticket booth. Okay, that's all part of you. Okay, but that's not. You don't run the ticket booth. You actually, critique shows and you're the editor.
No. So TDF is a nonprofit organization that's about bringing the power of the performing arts to everyone. We have a variety of programs where we try to make sure that shows are accessible, not just Broadway, but also off Broadway. The TKTS booth, like you said, is sort of the big public one. Anyone can go to that, stand online, get half-price tickets. It reopened on September 14th after having been closed since March of 2020.
Wow.
And, any day we have, we don't, admittedly, we don't get Hamilton, but we get a lot of shows up to 50% off. But we also have a membership program that actually does have a bit of a barrier to entry. You have to qualify, students qualify, retired people qualify, anyone in a union qualifies, freelancers qualify. So it's really a very large group of people who qualifies, and they get access to even cheaper tickets. I guess we don't say cheaper, we say deeply discounted tickets.
Yeah. Okay.
And especially plays and off Broadway. I think that is a really great membership for people who are adventurous theater goers and don't want to just see the next big musical.
And are there different tiers of membership that you
there? So no, it's just one tier for the a traditional TDF member. There is something also called a TAP membership, which is our TDF accessibility membership. Mm-hmm. That is free for anyone to join. Again, you have to be eligible, people with low vision or who are blind or who are deaf. Anyone with a physical or developmental disability would qualify, and they get offered a different set of tickets. Often the same things, but not exactly the same things.
I got you.
And then we also do educational programs. We have a lot of community engagement programs. We have a veterans theater going program where we partner with veterans organizations to distribute free tickets to a lot of really big Broadway shows. So it's pretty expansive what we do. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, we are a nonprofit. I think sometimes there's this sense of, what are you doing with all the money? Well, we're making sure we bring students and veterans and other people to the theater for free or at extremely reduced cost.
Right.
And so what I do there is we have a culture blog. Admittedly, during the pandemic, sort of became a listing site for what you could watch online. It's mostly read by TDF members. Anyone can come to the site and read it, but generally TDF members are the ones who read it. And, I'm going sort of back to the kind of editorial I did before, which is interviews with artists. But I'm also, I used to really be good about making sure we covered dance and off Broadway. It's not the kind of stuff you're going to find in major publications because they just focus on the big stars or the big names. For me, I want to showcase the fact that being a theater artist can mean many things. Recently, admittedly, with theater just starting up, I have been sort of doing lots of previews, like roundups of the best off-Broadway shows to see, roundups of what's opening on Broadway, just because I think people have to kind of be retrained to go to theater. That's the thing. When you talk about people saying they're not coming back, I think part of that is people just being afraid, and I totally understand that. But there is a sense of like a habit being broken. When you break a habit, sometimes you don't go back. And I have talked to members because, some of them write to me and I get to know them a little. And they've said, I've learned to love streaming. I've learned to love doing things that aren't theater. And you do wonder for some of those people who are older, maybe this really was the end. Maybe it just got to a point where after a year and a half, they figure, I don't want to schlep into, Midtown Manhattan to see shows. So we're going to have to see.
Yeah, we have to also, question because obviously there was a big battle of the unions between the SAG union and the equity union about who had control over the live shows and the streaming shows. And if a show was shot out of sequence, was that a SAG show or was it going to be able to be thought of as something that equity would have an opportunity to attach to? And again, no one wants to be able to have to pay both unions because, that drives up your costs like crazy. But then again, there had to be some sort of a meeting of the wills, and I noticed that there were a lot of shows that were produced during this time of the pandemic that were done under a SAG contract. But then again, you look at something like Hamilton, that had been shot out of sequence. And it had been shot on different nights. They took all the best of what it was, edited it together.
Yeah, but I think that's pretty typical for live stage capture. That's what the National Theater does with all of their productions that they put to the National Theater Live.
Mm-hmm. So but again, the question is, was that a live show or was that because it was shot out of sequence? Was it under the SAG contract? You see,
I mean, those are union. I can't. I mean,
right?
the fact is, they
Exactly.
shot it on stage.
That's right.
This wasn't
Yeah.
like a Zoom. I think that the question was more people who were doing Zooms and stuff. Who
Right.
who owns that? But I think
And
when it's
yeah,
on stage, I think that's a little more clear, even if it's
we
shot out of sequence. And again,
I
it's not shot out of sequence. It's just shot more than once, and then they edit it together.
well, right, but
It's not a movie where, okay, we're starting on scene 10 today.
right, but again, like they shot the opening sequence. I think was done on like Tuesday night, but the close-ups, etc., were done on Monday. So there are they move parts and of the thing in. It's not a problem. I understand, but again, it is something that we never would have thought about even thinking, considering prior to the pandemic, because we knew that Equity was in charge of all of the shows live, and we knew that SAG was in charge of all the films that were done. So there was never crossover. But now, because of the pandemic, we have sort of a smearing of the lines there, and hopefully, I think a lot of people came to enjoy streaming, and I think that it's going to be an outlet for some people to maybe consider doing shows not just live on stage, but also doing them perhaps with a streaming audience in mind, so that they can actually generate some additional revenue. But again, they have to do it under a right contract.
Well, there actually are some theaters that are doing what most people are now calling hybrid theater, where they're doing it live in the theater, or in person, I should say, in the theater. And they're also live streaming. And usually it's really in the moment. You're watching what the audience is watching, but some of them are also recording it and
Right.
then having like a recording that you can access on demand anytime. Rattlestick Playwrights Theater, which is an off Broadway theater, but a very well-regarded one in New York that a lot of, very big people work at. That's what they're doing this season. All of their shows are going to be in person and live stream.
And I wanted to put this up earlier, but now I'm going to put it up.
Yeah.
I'm presenting the TDF banner above you so you can see.
Well,
it.
and I also, when you mentioned reviews, I should have said I also review for Time Out. Haven't been doing it so much lately because Time Out decided not to cover streaming theater for, Time Out is a local publication that's about going out and doing things. So it didn't make sense with their mission. But I did review Merry Wives, Shakespeare in the Park, and I probably will be reviewing again soon. So that's where I have a critical voice. But at TDF, we love all theater, all of it.
I appreciate that. Now let me see if I can. I have a couple of shows that I wanted to show up, but I think I may have them. I think I may have to put us like this and then put them in the background. Let's see if we can get. You see where that is? Do you know what that is?
Yes, I see it as 6. It's the TDF purple.
Yes, and what I should do is
I think did you disconnect yourself? That's crazy. Do I stay here? Hello, everyone.
Sorry about that. I was
like, you left me
happened.
alone.
It was like I was going inside the theater. I wanted to go see 6. Sorry about that. But that was shot by I think Trisha Barron, who's a highly regarded photographer, and she has a connection to New Orleans because her wife is Miriam, who's the daughter of John Barron, who was a Tulane professor in music and was highly regarded. So what I did was I did everything right. I uploaded all the pictures, but I put them as backgrounds rather than as overlays. So I'll have to correct all that. But in the meantime, let me go back. 6. Tell me, did you get a chance to see 6 already, or
well,
just opened,
not
right?
on stage. I will. So my daughter and I are going this Thursday. We are very excited. I have not heard anyone I know who's seen it loves it. There are definitely some people who are kind of like, that doesn't sound like it's for me. But I've got to tell you, when I first read about the show, which really has this incredible trajectory, I mean, it really started with 2 university students in England. They got it in the Fringe. And within 4 years, they have productions all over the world. They have them on cruise ships too. And they have this, viral studio recording. So during the pandemic, since my daughter and I were supposed to see it, and then the performance didn't happen, we did watch a bootleg. I know bootlegs are bad, But
Yes.
we found a very nice bootleg that I'm sure is no longer on YouTube. I think it probably stayed up for a few hours, and we watched it, and it was of the Broadway production, and really we were just blown away. It's a much smarter, savvier show with clever rhymes, really cute songs, and a feminist sensibility that felt really authentic and not put on. So I have not seen it yet, but I'm really excited. It just opened on Sunday and it got basically rave reviews from everybody. And I think this is going to be the big hit. Like, this is a show that is not a new show that's not going to have trouble filling its seats.
These are the two directors on either side, and the two creative composer lyricists on the inside there. And again,
no, but I think that they're directing it too. I believe Lucci's directing it too. Maybe one of those people is the choreographer.
no, I when I read it, there were two co-directors. So I thought the two co-directors when
and I think one of them is the one in black. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Right, but
because she's the youngest woman to direct on Broadway.
Oh, okay. I don't doubt that. And so, so Six, my son got to see Six when he was in London with my daughter-in-law. They loved it, and they didn't mind telling me that they got to see a show that I didn't get to see yet. So they enjoyed reveling in seeing something before I got to see it. Now,
yeah. So Toby Marlowe and Lucy Moss, who are the two people inside, they're the ones who wrote it. But Lucy also co-directed it with Jamie Armitage. I'm guessing the other person is the choreographer, but I don't know. I'd have to look her up.
Blame Playbill. I don't know. I can tell you. Let me go on ahead now. We talked about Six, and I have some pretty incredible shots, but I want to go back to a couple more shows. Let me see if I can add these while I'm here. I don't know that I'm going to be able to, but we'll see. But I had a really good shot all lined up, and I think it's this one maybe. Let's see if that's the right one. We'll see if it shows up. Yeah, there's the Tony Award winner with the
Karen Olivo fighting the good fight.
Who is again? She decided to leave after the Scott Rudin debacle, if you will, and
it was more than Scott Rudin. Did you read the article Ashley Lee did in the LA Times, the Q&A with her a few weeks ago? It's worth reading.
I know she liked being a teacher, and I know that she felt much more connected as a teacher. And she even said when she appeared on the Seth Rudetsky concert series, which again, another thing that we should acknowledge throughout this entire pandemic as to how good it has been to keep all of us theater people entertained and connected. I mean, not just his concert series, but also the Stars in the House.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, and it's still, I don't know, are they?
He's doing it on Monday and Tuesday nights because right now he's focusing. He has a new in-person show. I actually saw a special press preview of it. It was crazy because in the audience was Betty Buckley, Orfeh and Andy Carl, Brian Stokes Mitchell and his family. It was really like, I was like, how am I here? Like, this is just royalty. And it's called Seth's Broadway Breakdown. And it's what it sounds like. I mean, he's very emotional. So he talks about the breakdown of not having Broadway for so long, but it's also him. Like, he's a super fan, but he's also someone who's worked on Broadway as a musical director, as an accompanist, as a performer. So he sort of breaks down what he loves about Broadway and what he thinks isn't so great. It's absolutely uproarious. And he's spending a lot of time promoting that. And he'll be doing that Fridays through Sundays starting next weekend. So, he's got a lot of stuff on his plate. And he's doing his concert series again, online.
Yes. And hopefully he'll be coming down to New Orleans to do some shows here as well. He does the shows in New Orleans as elsewhere around.
He goes everywhere.
Yeah, on the ship.
I played his wife once in a reading.
Very funny. So again, we now have instead of Karen Olivo, now we have, who's that? Natalie Mendoza, is that right?
Yep, and she was in the movie.
Yes,
not as
she in the movie. Wasn't she also in Here Lies Love?
Yes, she was. She was. So Alex Timbers knows her.
Yes. So there you go. I mean, and she looks absolutely spectacular. Looks like she's going to absolutely be a wonderful addition to that cast. The other, of course, happy event that we all can talk about, I guess, with everything going on with Moulin Rouge
Danny
winning
Burstein.
all of the awards was, yes, Danny Burstein.
That was really wonderful. I mean,
Seven
that
times
was a given
nominated.
also,
Yeah.
but it
Well,
was really just a
you know
lovely,
what?
lovely.
I didn't believe it till I saw them and
Yeah.
heard them announce Danny Burstein, because
7 times.
seven times
He's the Susan Lucci.
he was, absolutely.
He said it. He said it in
Yes.
the press room.
Yeah. But again, such a nice guy, and he acknowledged, of course, the passing of his beloved wife, whose voice will never be forgotten. She was just such a great. I remember being at the luncheon. I don't know if you were there. Were you there in 2019 at the ATCA luncheon, the Theater Critics luncheon, where she appeared? Yeah, it might have been 2018.
Yeah, I think it was
Might have
2018
been
because
before,
we got Will Eno making fun of my headband.
Okay. All right.
I was like, hey, I'm just sitting here.
Anyway, but no, and the problem is that was the table I went for first, and some of those old line theater critics, they're like mad dogs sometimes. They if they see somebody coming, they head them up. Oh no, you can't sit at our table.
Yeah.
You can't sit at our table. I felt like saying, I'm one guy, I just want to see Rebecca.
Lilius White was at my table, and I just didn't know what to say because I was like, I love you. I'm just going to eat now.
Right. No, she's a very sweet
Oh,
lady.
she was lovely.
I had a great picture of her with William Ivy Long, the designer for costumes, and I mean, you can't get a better picture. Two people more joyful and in the moment, just it was great. But Danny Burstein had been at one of the luncheons we had, and Rebecca was at another one, and I asked Danny about appearing on stage with his wife, and apparently they had never really done a show together. He said, I've never really done a show with my wife, which I found really, really odd. I thought for sure sometime or other they had done something.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Jason Daniele and Marin Maisie and how many shows they did together. So
yeah. And again, another great loss. I remember, and again, I'm dating myself, but I, back in 1990 something, what it was, I was staying on Long Island with a friend of mine. It was 2 weekends. I was with the Jewish Singles group in Virginia, and then I ended up taking the train up to New York. I got off the station. I got off at 34th Street, Pennsylvania Station, and then transferred to the Long Island Railroad and drove on the railroad another 2 hours to the middle of Central Islip, Long Island. I don't know if you know where that is, but
I've heard of it.
You might consider it the armpit of Long Island. It was not exactly, a great place to stay, but a friend of mine had a place there, and I got on the Long Island Railroad train, went 2 hours into New York, got off at 34th Street, and then, obviously took the next subway train up to 42nd Street, got off at Times Square, walked over to, at that time it was the Ford Theater, and I said, I'm here to see Ragtime. What do you have for me? And they gave me a house seat. First time I ever had a house seat. And it was probably the best show I would say I've ever seen on Broadway. And I want to paraphrase that. Certainly before 2000, but before maybe Hamilton, which was a special place in my heart. But it was just amazing. I mean, you had all those Brian Stokes Mitchell, you had Audra McDonald, you had Marin Maisie. I mean, just what a cast.
So here's some weird trivia.
Yeah.
Lynn Ahrens is my cousin.
Wow.
She's technically my mother's first cousin. So I'm first cousin once removed, but I don't.
Or second cousin, depending on how you look at it. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So anyway, so I remember going and just thinking, my husband and I mean, he was my boyfriend then, and just thinking it was absolutely incredible and spectacular. And when you talked about the Tonys, watching Brian Stokes Mitchell and Audra McDonald sing Wheels of a Dream, I was like, I'm ready for them to do it again. I don't care that there was 25 years ago.
They have done it in concert. They've done it in concert.
But I mean, they could do it again. They look good. They could do it.
They do. And I will tell you that those sorts of shows, they don't come along that often. But when they do, they just blow you away. Which is why Hamilton was so impressive, not because, hey, it's the first show that ever had hip hop. That's wrong. In the Heights was really the first one that got big awards for best musical, and that was another Lin-Manuel Miranda vehicle. But the point is that Hamilton, what it did was to really turn Broadway on its head in many ways, and I think that reinvention of Broadway is what's necessary, and part of what we're maybe experiencing now in terms of how the casting is done and what is going to be done. I mean, one of the reasons that Lin-Manuel decided to call Hamilton an American musical was he wanted to emphasize the fact that we're all Americans and that the immigrant story is not just a story for Europeans, but for everybody, from wherever they come into America. So I think that it's important to remember that we are a nation of immigrants, and we should respect each other's past, and perhaps think about the fact that what Hamilton essentially shows us is that yes, the founding fathers were all white,
They were white.
wig wearing, people who probably had slaves, but they weren't necessarily, by today's standards, the individuals that we wanted to maybe snuggle up next to, but they had principles that they stood for, and those principles can guide us to become a better nation, and perhaps learn more from our past. And
I will say though that and I love Hamilton. Do not get me wrong. But it is the kind of show that people see the reflection they want in it. I knew Republicans who thought that the show was about the fact that we were a great nation just the way we are, and no changes need to be made. So it is interesting how people can see what they want in that show. I mean, you could see what you want in any show, but I think in that show in particular, each group thinks it's so clear what he's saying. I think it's more like what you are saying, but I know many people who felt differently.
So, we're talking about Hamilton, so we may as well talk about. Have you heard anything about the new production? They just opened.
I'll be honest, I haven't. I mean, I do not get invited to shows that are just resuming performances. So no, sorry. I could talk about other things, but all the shows that are resuming performances, I don't really have any intel on.
What about, and we're going to get to some of the plays, because I know that's what you really like more. But,
well, no, I love musicals. I just happen to think that we have a really exciting group of plays this year.
What do you think about Beetlejuice? What's the story? I mean, at first it was closing forever. Now it's coming back, apparently. Is that right?
I mean, the thing with Beetlejuice is that a lot of people felt like it really got a terrible deal. There was a point where we were selling it on TDF a lot, and then we weren't. I mean, word of mouth really built. Alex, oh my God, no, I'm stuck on Timbers because he directed it.
Reitman.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's okay.
He got a very big, he started a TikTok channel that got huge, and it really, he started to attract fans who either didn't know about the musical or didn't think it was for them. And by the time the pandemic, was hitting, the show was selling out and doing very well. But that theater had been promised to Scott Rudin. Of course, that's
another story.
It's still an issue in the sense that Music Man is going on, and it is going into that space.
Right.
But the producers seemed really committed to finding it another theater, and they did. And the question is, will the momentum still be there? But Alex Brightman has really been a genius about TikTok.
And there was one other aspect to that too. The young lady who was only, I think, 17, Sophia.
Yes, Sophia Ann Caruso.
Oh my goodness, what a voice! She was
amazing. But she left before the pandemic ended.
What happened?
Yeah, kind of. We don't know.
Was it burnout? Was it nervous breakdown?
I don't think it. I mean, I don't know. I'd seen her in Lazarus off Broadway, the David Bowie musical. And he, I don't think it was burnout. I'm thinking she had another opportunity, but then the pandemic hit so quickly. Like her contract was up and she decided she was going to go. But then the pandemic hit, so whatever she was going to do didn't happen. Again, that's just a guess. Maybe it was burnout, but that wasn't the vibe that I got.
Yeah. And the young lady who also was in there who played the Brazilian actress as well. She played
Leslie Kritzer.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, Leslie Kritzer's great.
What a wonderful actress she turned out to be too.
She was my favorite thing in the show. To be honest,
she stole the show. Yeah, she's wonderful. So you and I have similar tastes. Okay, let's go on. Plays. Okay, I know you've seen this play, Passover, right?
Yes.
And I want to be able to talk a little bit about Passover.
It's the last week.
Again. Tell me a little bit about this. Is as I appreciate it. it's an updated version, although maybe not exactly an updated version of Waiting for Godot. Is that correct?
Not really. It's a riff. It's a riff on Waiting for Godot that's also a mashup with the Exodus story, and then it becomes its own thing. But it's true that if you know Waiting for Godot, you've got the street light that's standing in for the tree, and the kind of patter that they have, the way they repeat themselves, and the sort of humor, the vaudevillian humor, even though the words they're saying are totally different. There's something about the patterns and sort of the rhythm of it that is reminiscent of Godot. I first saw this play off Broadway at Lincoln Center in their smallest space, the Clairteau Theater, part of their LC3 series. And I gave it it's actually one of my big regrets. I gave it 4 stars in Time Out. I really wanted to give it 5. But I remember my editor saying, is it one of the best shows you're going to see this year? And that's always hard to say. I'm like, I don't know. But it was in my heart, it was a 5-star show. It had been at Steppenwolf. There's actually a version of it that Spike Lee directed, he did a live stage capture at Steppenwolf. But that version is so different. Even the one I saw at Lincoln Center is different than that one. And then this one has a completely different, I'd say, like third or quarter at the end. I think it's a very powerful show about so many different things. And as a white person with white privilege, I admit there are things about it that I probably don't understand. It also, I do remember reading a lot of people complaining about its use of profanity and the N-word, not just white people complaining, but also Black people. So I do respect the fact that there's some Black people who might go in and find it very triggering that they talk this way all the time and that they don't feel like it's realistic. But this play, she said it's Afrofuturism. I called it surrealism. It's not meant to be naturalistic, but the emotions that it's getting to and the conflicts and the fear that Black men feel in society, I think, are very authentic in it. And the 3 of them are really great. It's Namir Smallwood, who's making his Broadway debut. Then you've got John Michael Hill, who'd already been nominated for a Tony for Superior Donuts, and Gabriel Ebert, who won the Tony for Matilda. He plays all the white characters. He plays a cop and he plays a stranger who seems to have walked off the plantation. I mean, the 3 of them are absolutely brilliant together.
So I know it was only set up for a limited run. Is the reason they're not extending it that they weren't getting sales generated? Or
look, the Broadway League is not releasing grosses, but they were the first show to open on Broadway besides Bruce Springsteen.
Yes.
The people in it are not stars. It's a play. Plays are always a hard sell. I'm glad that it made it to the end of the run that it had set for itself. I think it was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and both in terms of content and the fact that it was the first play to come back and they didn't have to cancel even one performance due to COVID. But was it like this sellout hit? No, we were selling it every day. But I think the people who saw it were really, changed by it. And I think, it's going to go down in the history books. It was the first one to come back. They did well. It got rave reviews. And
I can't consider Springsteen the same type of show.
No, I know. But technically he did open.
Yeah. Seats were like $500 or $600 or more.
Oh, more than that.
Yeah. $800, $1,000. I mean, he was making a lot of money and only playing a certain number of nights, and then he was closed again. So the theater wasn't open much. Okay. So we know about Passover. It's got about another week or so to go before it closes. I think maybe
it closes
the 11th.
On Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the other shows that's just, I think it's in previews. It hasn't actually, is that correct? Or is it actually?
Yeah. So Lackawanna Blues. I actually interviewed Ruben about it, and he's always such a great interview. I have not seen it yet. Excuse me, because the night that I was supposed to go, he ended up sorry.
That's okay.
Throwing out his back. So he had a few performances that he did that didn't happen, and they moved the opening date. It's the 7th, so it'll be this Thursday.
Okay.
This was off Broadway at the Public 20 years ago.
Okay, now, and essentially, it's based on, I think, his mother, who had
The woman
It's
who
his
raised
aunt.
him,
Is an
not
aunt
his
then?
mother.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about it.
So it's based on his experiences at a boarding house run by a woman named Nanny. He called her Nanny, Miss Rachel. And
Okay.
it's, you know, not just about her and their relationship, but also about all the different kind of, you know, lost people who went through that house and how they influenced him. And I mean, that's where he grew up, and how, you know, she was this calming, nurturing maternal presence in their lives. You know, again, I'm basing this off of what we talked about, not having seen it, but everyone I know who saw it said that he's absolutely spectacular because, you know, he inhabits all these different people and he doesn't do any costume changes or anything like that. He just delineates them in speech, in gait, you know, in
All right.
accent.
And now this is Ruben Santiago Hudson.
Yeah.
And now he did this originally as a play that was then made into a movie, and it's now a play again. Is that the way
So it was a solo show at the Public in 2001.
right?
They expanded it and turned it into a multi-character play, you know, movie
Right.
with Esapatha Murkison from Law and Order again, as Nanny. And then he started to bring it back in 2019. He was touring it around, and this was actually slated to be on Manhattan Theatre Club's lineup, but then the season didn't happen. So, and now he's an artistic, during the pandemic, he became an artistic advisor at Manhattan Theatre Club. But, you know, he was explaining he has a relationship with them. He directed the revival of Jitney that won the best revival a few years ago for them. You know, this was already on the docket. So he didn't force it through. And he's directing Skeleton Crew.
Yes.
In you know, in December, which is Dominique Morisseau's show that was such a big hit at the Atlantic Theater.
I saw a reading of that, you know, that was done from Atlantic Theater. I want to say about maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and it was really well done.
Oh
But
yeah,
again,
that's right. They did a virtual. Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a great. It's part of her her Detroit trilogy.
Right.
I feel like I have the name wrong, but it's those 3 plays about Detroit.
Right.
And yeah, it's really, I saw it at Atlantic. It's a great play. Felicia Rashad is going to do it on Broadway.
And she's gotten, you know, since she did the book for Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, you know, her stock has risen considerably as a playwright. And I think people said, well, she's pretty good. That's a pretty good book. I was a little bit surprised that she didn't, you know, I was glad that she was nominated, but I was kind of, you know, kind of pulling for her to win Best Book. But I guess it was Hadestown that she was up against. It's hard to beat Anais, right, Mitchell?
Yeah, but Anais Mitchell, I don't think that won for book. It won for score and it won Best Musical.
I'm trying to remember what won.
I know. Now I'm like, what? That seems like so long ago.
It does. It does. Well, in any event, but I was hoping that Dominique would win, but she did not, sadly. In any event, let me run up one of the other shows.
It was Robert Horn for Tootsie. No wonder.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I should have known that. And I know how much you love Tootsie. We're not going to go there. In any event, Tootsie will be here in New Orleans, everybody. If you're wondering, November the 9th, it opens at the Sanger.
I am in the minority opinion. Many people find it very funny.
Well, he won for Best Book, and you know that was.
But all the best lines came from the movie.
Probably so. That's all right. One of the other shows that's coming up, and I'm not going to mention Mrs. Doubtfire because of some of the problems that you mentioned earlier. That you know, men dressing up as women, not necessarily the best idea in a 2020 plus year. That
it feels like a pre-pandemic idea.
Right. So let's move on to one of the shows that I am specifically hoping to see. It opens in another few weeks, but I believe the previews open this coming Monday. Carolina Change, and that again was Olivier winning Sharon D. Clark. Is that right?
Yeah.
And she's going to be taking on the part of Caroline, which is again the Tony Kushner, Janine Tesori musical that was done. I'm trying to remember the year. Was it?
I feel like it was 2004 or 3.
Yeah, I want to say about 2004
with Tanya Pinkins and Vianne Cox. I mean, it was a while ago.
Yeah. In any event, you know, this is coming back. It's probably due, and it's got some unusual characters in it. I mean, they have the singing, you know, washer, dryer, and radio, which I love. And of course, you know, the fact is that Tony Kushner was really raised in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is about a 3-hour drive from here. His father was the conductor, the maestro for the Lake Charles Symphony Orchestra. So he has ties to New Orleans. He's, pretty thick. He doesn't come down here that often. But anytime he wants to come to Louisiana, I know we would welcome him with open arms. But I think that he probably is happy up in New York and or in Hollywood if he's out there from time
I was
to
going to
time.
say in Hollywood, he's writing West Side Story. I mean, he wrote it already.
Yeah, so he's got that, and that's the other thing too that for the pandemic may have kept us out of the theaters, but because of the pandemic, we got to see a lot of movies, in our homes streamed. That Hamilton was supposed to not actually make it to movie theaters until 2022, and was shown, a full year ahead of time. 2020, 2 years ahead of time.
2021, I think.
Yeah. But in any event, we were privileged to be able to see that. Now, several shows I saw Dear Evan Hansen. It's a movie.
I have not seen that yet.
It's a movie. It is, as all movies,
it's a movie.
The director's vision. It's not the play, the musical, recorded on film and kept for generations to see the stage play, the stage musical. It's not the same. So those of you who can't get over, there were scenes that were cut. I mean, one of my favorite, the opening number, Anybody Got a Map? Gone. Disappear. Great song. Gone. It disappeared. But I understood what the reasons were. Those songs tend to detract, from the storyline about Dear Evan. We don't get to see Evan right up at front because we see the mothers first. So if you eliminate that, you go straight to Evan and you start to see his character develop on screen. And I understand, it makes sense if you're doing a movie. But I saw Dear Evan Hansen. I have seen. I'm looking forward to seeing the production of West Side Story. That should be coming out soon
in December.
Yeah, but and there was one other one that
I'm
came
more
out.
excited about Tick Tick Boom.
Yeah,
I loved Tick Tick Boom off Broadway. I am of the minority opinion that it is a better show than Rent.
Yeah,
it is certainly
you're going to be in the minority on that. Yeah, it's a much smaller show,
but I think it's a better realized show in a lot of ways. And I saw it off Broadway with Raul Esparza and Amy Spanger 100 years ago. It was like 20 years ago.
Anyway, we've been doing a good job tonight. We've been talking so much that we're.
I know.
We're
Sorry, I feel bad.
It's okay. No. You know what? I really appreciate you being here. But one of the things that people don't understand is that as a theater community, New Orleans is an island unto itself. But we are all part of a greater community of theater lovers. And I think it's very important for people to know that the reason you go to New York to see shows, is that if you love theater, truly love theater, and really, want to see the shows done at the highest of the levels that can possibly be done, you need to go to a New York theater to see a Broadway show, whether it's an off-Broadway show, whether it's a Broadway show. They all offer something that you don't get in a local community show. And I'm not saying that the local communities don't do a good job. I mean, they do the very best that they can with what they have resources for. But again, it's something to revel in when you can go and see a show produced on Broadway, and even if it's off Broadway or off Broadway, see the level of performances that you see and really enjoy. And again, if I could figure out a way to live here in New Orleans and visit New York all the time, I would be able to get away with that. I would love to do that.
But I will say that I think that the other thing the pandemic did is just showed producers the value of having a high quality live stage capture like Hamilton. I mean, we also have the David Byrne show that way.
Yeah.
We have Come From Away. Diana, we didn't even talk about Diana and the fact that, and yes, we all know what the reviews were, but the fact that they released that on Netflix before Broadway, I don't know if that will work for them, but I think that's something to really look at. I mean, Hamilton, now granted, Hamilton is its own thing, but it didn't lose anything by being put on Disney Plus. I mean, you can just watch that now, but people are going to see it. People are going to see Come From Away. So
right. I think you're right. I don't think people who want to be in a theater and want to be in the moment and connect to what's going
They
on stage.
understand the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be your casual person who watches it and is like, oh, okay, whatever, that's fine. But those are people who are not going to go and buy a ticket and sit in the theater anyway. I think that when we think about the accessibility that streaming, again, a high quality version of these shows, what it does is it just keeps sparking the imagination, the excitement of theater lovers that don't live in New York, who maybe only come once a year or once every 2 years, or maybe they're saving up to come for their 16th birthday. I really think that you create more theater goers by being able to have these live stage captures. So I hope that's a trend that continues.
And again, bring your kids to Broadway.
Oh yeah.
You know, bring the kids to see the Radio City
Not
Rockettes at
under
Christmas
4.
time.
4 is the limit. 4 is the minimum. A lot of people bring them to the Disney before that, but don't.
Yeah, no,
4 is good.
Anyway, and we didn't even talk about Aladdin and the problem that they've had with the pandemic, having to open and shut down because of COVID. But you know what? These are the fits and starts we're going to have as we come back. And again, I think that you know, these are to be expected. In order to keep the community safe, the audiences safe, we're going to have rigorous testing continue until this thing is in our rear view. And as you said earlier, it's not going to be in our rear view for a long time to come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's going to be a different kind of Broadway, no stage door, you know, access anymore. But, you know, it will be hopefully an opportunity for some of us to, you know, be able to see the shows and maybe see the performers in other ways, other, you know, times and be able to maybe connect with them that way. Thank you so much. Again, our guest tonight has been Raven Snook. And I just want to thank you for being with me tonight. Raven did an outstanding job, and I can't tell you how pleased I was to be with you. Again, if I can reciprocate anytime you have something going on that you think you need an expert from New Orleans, let me know.
Let me
Yeah.
know when you're coming to New York next.
Well, I'm trying to make my way soon, but you know, I don't know exactly. It's got to be the problem I have, and we could talk about it later off the show. But you know, I have to make sure that when I do go, it's at an opportune time, and that there's a little thing called Mardi Gras that gets in the way sometimes here that I get involved with. So, in any event, you take care. I'm going to ask you to just stick around for a little bit. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Again, our guest has been Raven Snook. Thank you for being with us. Again, NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason. Again, I appreciate you being with me. Again, those of you who watched it tonight can see this again at the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group or on theatercriticism.com's Facebook page or on my own YouTube channel. And again, I'll look forward to seeing you a week from tonight with John Bigonnet at 8 o'clock Central Time as we talk a little bit about playwriting and how locales can affect the playwright and the plays. And it's about time we have time to say goodnight. We're a little bit over their time. We appreciate your being with us still, and I'll see you all at the theater.